Hi there, and welcome along to episode 155 of the Gersnet Podcast, a totally free and independent Rangers show made by fans for fans, where all of our content is always free. And that's not just the podcast that we have here at Gersnet, but if you head over to our website at www.gersnet.co.uk, you'll find a whole host of great content, including a very friendly discussion forum, plenty of articles, match previews, social media, and a really informative history archive as well. So please do check that out if you haven't done so already. The podcast is always, as always, is going out live. It's just gone 9:30 on Sunday, the 31st of October. So a very happy Halloween to anyone who may be celebrating that tradition. If you're not listening live, then remember that the show is always available for download on a Monday morning. And that's wherever you get your podcasts from, including iTunes, Acast, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, and also on Spotify. If you've not joined us before, then please do give us a wee like and a subscribe and share the podcast as well. We'll be very, very grateful. We're here today to talk about Rangers trip to Fir Park this afternoon. We've had a few shows this week, obviously looking a very difficult week for the Rangers family, what with the passing of Walter Smith earlier on, and then the difficult result as well on Wednesday against Aberdeen. So today's show is going to be just about Motherwell. There's plenty of talking points as Rangers really find form again. The Zambian Prince really announced his arrival into the Scottish football scene, as was recognised by the Zambian president, but we'll come to all of that. And I've got two top-class guests to help me do so. First of all, who I can see for Halloween seems to be dressed up as a middle-aged boar. It's Colin Armstrong. Colin, how are you?
Yeah, I might be a middle-aged boar, Ross, but I know it's episode 156 of the Gersnet Podcast and not 155. See, you set yourself up for these falls all the time.
That's a shocker. You see, I felt quite bad about that we joked that I had a middle-aged boar, but
no, you're pretty much on the money, to be fair.
I realised that yesterday morning you tweeted that you'd bought a new box of tea bags and that was the highlight of your week. Actually, explain yourself.
Well, actually, it was Friday morning and it was a highlight of my week, but our fellow podder, John McCallum, has told me that my tea taste is off and I should try Thompson's, who are apparently quite staunch. They're from Northern Ireland. So I tried. I got a bag or a box. Yesterday. I tried it this morning, and Rangers 161. So that's it. That's my new tea. The Yorkshire's been binned.
Excellent. I mean, we're still looking for sponsors here at Gersnet. So if Thompson's Teas want to get in touch, I think Colin wants a free box sent over.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're uber staunch as well. And I'm quoting John McCallum there.
Fair enough. The two of you can go and set up a rival tea podcast and leave that patter away where it belongs. Also joining us, it's another exile from Scotland living with us down in England, Iain Duff. Iain, how's your week been?
Not too bad, thanks, actually. I was back up in Scotland, actually, last week, so it was quite a nice wee trip up the road. But back now and ready for work tomorrow. Raring to go. Absolutely.
You see, I'm heading up to Glasgow next weekend for the Ross County game, and I've forgotten it's this COP26 climate conference, right? £800 for a hotel room that they're charging. So no doing that. Stay with my sister instead.
Just stick it on the Gersnet expense account.
Absolutely. I saw that Thompson's Tea sponsorship.
Tea will pay for it, exactly.
Right, gents, there was 7 goals today. There was a red card today. There's some potential controversy around offsides and handballs that we can get to. So there's lots and lots for us to talk about. As Rangers, as I say, finally discover a wee bit of form and put in a performance that was reminiscent of last season. Before we get to the positive stuff, Colin, yet another game where we start slow and concede first. And it was a bit of a shambles, that goal to concede, what with a bit of a mix-up between Connor Goldson and Tavernier leading to them getting a corner. And then was it Tavernier and Balogun losing their men at the corner and leading to Rangers going 1-0 down. How did you view that goal for Motherwell and how did that make you feel as that went in?
I mean, the goal itself, I mean, it's undoubtedly, a shambles, but I'm going to have to slightly disagree with you. I thought Rangers started really well today. I was glad, I was really happy to see Aribo back in the front three on that right-hand side. I think that's where he does his best work. So that gave me a wee boost when I saw that. I have to be honest, when I saw Sakala in the team, I was like, oh, you know what I mean? I saw someone describe him on Twitter through the week as a jobber. And although I thought that was slightly harsh, I could see where he was coming from. Me and my son were talking on the train coming home on Wednesday from the Aberdeen game, and I sort of said, I know he won us the penalty and all that, but just when he was coming on, I just didn't inspire me. And I sort of said to myself, I think he's a bit of a downgrade actually from Eaton. You know, when he came on, you always thought there's maybe a goal. So when I saw Sakala in the team, I just kind of, I'm not so sure. Happy to see Scott Arfield back in the team. I think he's been sort of chapping at the door. I know you're not happy with that, Ross. So I was happy when I seen the team, and I thought we started well. I thought we were moving the ball really well. Maybe not creating a huge amount of chances, but certainly causing them trouble. And then this whole thing, it sort of blighted the season. This thing that we're going behind in every game, and it came, as you say, it came from nothing. You know, a bit of a mix up between Tav and Goldson. I think Tav maybe has to be a wee bit more assertive there and deal with it. Goldson's at the more awkward angle, so when he meets it with the head, it goes out for the corner. As for the goal itself, Balogun loses his man. I think McGregor does okay initially with the first save, but it's a tight angle. You know what I mean? I'm not convinced that he should be scoring from there. But look, see, at the end of the day, see, for all the talk of Rangers conceding and going behind, and what we've spoke about it a few times on this pod, you know, you have to actually give them credit for the resilience they've shown. I mean, there's no teams secured more points in the league than coming from a losing position than Rangers. So you would have to say, okay, we've dropped a few points at home, but overall we're getting ourselves out of trouble. But it would be nice not to be in that trouble in the first place. Just maybe once or twice. Yeah. You know what I mean? That said, it was a routine win today. You know, we absolutely, you know, we scudded them. You know, they got the goal. They had that chance a couple of minutes after it with Tony Watt. The ball went across the goal and Tony Watts came in. Other than that, I can't think anything that Motherwell done today. I thought Rangers were very dominant. I know there's this talk of, you know, 6-1 against 10 men. I thought that the thumping was on the cards anyway before they went down to 10. I thought Rangers were very impressive today. But again, you know, we need to tighten up a wee bit and get these errors out our game in terms of conceding early.
Yeah, I mean, we'll come to the red cards in a moment, but it's not as if Stephen O'Donnell was doing particularly much in the game before he got himself sent off. So I don't think it had a huge impact at all. It's interesting, Colin, the point you make about points that we've won from losing positions. I think we're now up to 13 points that we've won from losing positions in the league this season. I think in all competitions we've conceded the first goal 9 times. I mean, that's which is staggering. We're on 27 points, and if 13 of them have come from losing positions, it's a positive and a negative, isn't it? Because it does speak to the character of the side and it speaks to the resilience. But at the same time, let's stop putting ourselves in losing positions, and we won't need to display that character.
Did Walter Smith's final team, you know, that final season, did they not start like that season? You know, we went behind quite a lot, and we always came back. I seem to, that kind of crossed my mind today when I was watching. That sort of reminds me of that sort of 2010, 2011 side, and that early part of the season. I mean, we were at Tynecastle, we went a goal behind. At Celtic Park, a goal behind. There was 3 or 4 times in that early part of the season, but you really trusted that Rangers team to get us out of it. This Rangers team, I prefer it when they're winning and winning comfortably rather than having to fight for it. You know what I mean? It's a different sort of makeup. But that said, they're dealing with it. You know what I mean? They have came back in the majority of cases when we went behind, but we have came back. But you know, I'd rather we didn't have to do that. You know, I'm getting of a certain age and my ticker can't take it.
Yeah.
One of the things that's been said a lot this season, a lot of people have been saying, oh, you know, this team doesn't have bottle, doesn't have character, it doesn't have the spirit. And I think those stats kind of show that that's just not true. I mean, you know, you could argue that they've been slack and they haven't played as well as we could play, but I don't think you could really question the bottle or the mentality of them. I think, you know, in most games, nearly all the games, maybe 1 or 2 where we've been pretty poor, but I don't think you would question the overall mentality or strength of character of them. They've just not played very well, and you know, I think that's always, you know, I would say if you've got the character and you've got the spirit and you've got the bottle to stand up when you go a goal behind, then that's, you know, as good as playing well, really, in some ways, you know, because it you know, it gets you out of a hole, and if you're in the hole, then you need to get out of it. And you know, I think this team's shown that they have got the ability to do that.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because last season, the team got so much praise for their ruthlessness, their domination, and the relentlessness with which they strode to 55. I guess this year they're showing a different side to themselves, not just as footballers, but kind of in the mental side as well. They're showing a different aspect of what they can bring, and I think it's to their credit. Iain, one of the players that probably gets singled out for criticism verging on abuse more than anyone else is Captain James Tavernier. 30th birthday today. I must admit I was surprised to see him start. I thought it was a game that he might have brought Patterson in, and I think there's been plenty of calls for Tav to take to the bench and for Patterson to come in, but Tavernier does get the start, and after the goal he goes on to, after the goal that Motherwell score, I should say, he goes on to score an absolutely wonderful strike. He then gets 2 assists, and Gerrard calls it his best performance of the season. Given the up and down nature of Tavernier's season so far, do you agree with that assessment? And how did you view his game today?
Yeah, I mean, he's had 1 or 2 decent games, but certainly not to the level of consistency that you would want, and probably not to the level of consistency that he had last season. But I still think it would take I know there's a lot of people asking for him to be dropped and to be replaced, and when you've got a really good prospect as your alternative, then that makes a lot of sense. But it's a big shout to drop your captain and one of your best players over the last 3 or 4 years because he's not playing well. That creates a huge story in itself and a huge drama in itself, and when that happens, that can then start to affect all the other players, and it can start to affect the player that comes in to replace him. So, and as well as Tavernier himself, and it becomes a big story. It sort of reminds me of when Amoruso was stripped to the captaincy under Advocat, and then he was dropped, and there was just a huge amount of drama, and it didn't really help the general situation in that season. So it would be a big shout for Gerrard to drop him in a game where you would normally expect him to start. But, I think he proved today that he's capable of doing something that, other players wouldn't necessarily be capable of doing. That the goal he scored was absolutely outstanding. There's not many players, there's very few players in Scotland would score a goal like that from right back. So I think, while there's calls for him to be dropped, I don't know whether I would necessarily drop him. I would think if we were going to bring Patterson in at all, it would be to push Tavernier maybe up into midfield or something and add something a bit different, because obviously the attacking element of his game is by far the best part of his game. But yeah, I mean, he has had a few good games this season, but as I say, nowhere near as good as last season, and nowhere near as good as we would hope. But it would be a big shout to drop him, I think.
Yeah, it's
Ross. Can I come in that?
Sure, please do.
I think the problem is defensively, because I was looking through Twitter today, and he got the winner against St Johnstone. He got an assist last week for Morelos. He got an assist and a goal through the week against Aberdeen, and he's got a goal and assist today. So I mean, I was one of the ones that I was a bit like you when Tav was in the team. I was a bit like, and then after the mix up with him and Goldson, I actually messaged my mate saying Tav needs to come out this team, because there seems to be an issue with they two. They're not communicating the same way, and there seems to be a big issue down that right hand side defensively. But going forward, I don't think anyone else is going to give you the numbers that Tav provides, and I think he maybe gets a harder time than he deserves, to be honest with you. And I include myself in that, because as I said, at one point I was texting my mate saying he needs to come out this team, because I think we're more solid at the back with Patterson at the moment, and I do think there's an issue between Goldson and Tavernier. Frankie mentioned it a few weeks ago in one of the shows, and I've been looking out for it since. And I mean, I noticed it through the week. There's a lot of times now Goldson goes long rather than putting out to the right to Tavernier. They're always sort of bickering at one another. You know what I mean? If you watch them, there's definitely an issue. But so defensively, yeah, I think there is an issue with Tav. But if you take him out the team, I think you lose a lot going forward. His numbers in terms of the attacking side of his game are I don't think anyone else gives you that.
I suppose the question is, I mean, last season you could have argued that his presence in the team and the attacking threat that he provided basically outweighed any defensive issues that there might have been, because we were taking the chances that he was creating, or he was scoring more goals maybe, or whatever, and therefore the defensive issues were less glaring. So this season we were not playing as well in an attacking sense, or taking the chances that we should be taking, then those defensive lapses become more important, and then the focus is on them rather than the attacking side of things. So I suppose we need to know, are we going to, if we took him out of the team completely, would we lose, by losing the attacking threat, would that be more negative impact on the team than leaving them in the defensive sense? So maybe that's why using them as a further up the pitch player rather than at right back might be an option.
See, something happened today that hasn't happened for a while, and it happened a few times last season. One fullback crossed for the other fullback to score. And that happened a few times how many times Borna put the ball in for Tavernier to score? And Tav nearly returned the favour. He sent a ball in today, and Bassey came close. So we get a lot. I think the way Rangers are set up is all about the fullbacks. It's all about getting them as far up the field. So, yeah, I agree with you. There's so many issues in terms of defensively, but I just look at the numbers and in terms of going forward, and I just don't think Nathan Patterson gives you that.
Well, whilst we're on the fullbacks, Colin, it's another game where Calvin Bassey's at left back, and I think Calvin Bassey did a tremendous job today. I thought he was solid defensively and created quite a lot going forward. I understand that Borna has had his injury problems. We've also spoken a lot about Borna being a confidence player, probably more so than anyone else in the squad. Are we at a stage now where Calvin Bassey is overtaking Borna Barisic for that starting left-back spot?
Well, one thing I will say about Bassey is he's not a centre-half. The times he's played at centre-half, he's looked a bit suspect, if I'm being honest. But I would have to say he's been our best performing left-back this season. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Borna, we were all worried he was going to go in the summer, because of the level of performance that he's put in over the last couple of years. And there was that thing, was at the end of the Celtic game, it looked like he was, saying his farewells. He was out sort of applauding the crowd and all that. So I don't know if a deal was on and then it suddenly was off again. I don't know, because that certainly looked like he was on his way. But I think he looks about 2 yards off. He's his sort of usual pace. He doesn't seem to get around players the same way at the moment. And his delivery's not the best. You're not getting the same in terms of free kicks and all that from him. So I don't want to say he's playing particularly poorly, but he's certainly not at the levels he was last season. And at the moment, I genuinely, I don't know what Ian thinks, but I genuinely think Bassey is currently the better option in that position. I wouldn't quite go as far as to say he's a first pick for left back at the moment. I don't think he's quite made that position his own yet. But in terms of form, I think he's the better option at the moment.
Yeah. Ian, what do you reckon? It's almost as if Barisic has gone back. I don't know if you remember how he was in that first season that we brought him in from Moscow.
Exactly. That was exactly what I was going to say, was that first season, I think everybody would have said he's never going to make it, because he just didn't look like he had the confidence to perform. And then something changed and something clicked, and he suddenly became a player. And I think everyone was at that point thinking, well, this is a guy who's going to be the first choice left back for a long time. And I think at the moment, Bassey is the man in possession of the position. So he's done nothing wrong to merit being left out of the team. So I personally would say he should stay in position, and let's see what he can do, because I've thought Bassey looked like a player from the very first game he played. He looked raw, and he looked as if he needed a run in the team, and he needed to fit in a bit. But he looked like he had the sort of the raw talent there to fill that position if needed. I assumed he would be the replacement for Barisic. I didn't think Barisic would still be here. Sort of 2 years down the line, to be honest. I actually thought he would have gone before the start of last season. But I'm glad he didn't, because he was absolutely outstanding last season. But yeah, I mean, I think, like Colin says, maybe there was an issue where he thought he was leaving, and that fell through for one reason or another, and that's affected his game. Maybe, I don't know, or just the ongoing injury issues that he's had might be a problem as well. But I think Bassey's in position at the moment. He deserves to stay there until, and hopefully it won't be the case that he gets pulled because he's not playing well.
See, another thing about Bassey is he's so enthusiastic. Yeah. He just looks like he really enjoys playing for Rangers, and I always enjoy to see players like that. He always looks like he enjoys it. He's up for it. Plays with a bit of a smile on his face, unlike some in that team that I could mention. And yeah, I think he does. And his delivery, you could argue his delivery at times is better than Borner's. So yeah, I think it's his jersey at the moment, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, his delivery needs to be good. That's such an integral part of the way that this Rangers side plays, is that the fullbacks need to have that in the locker. Now, from one player who arrived and looked a bit raw and needed a run in the team to another, Iain Fashion Sakala today really marked his arrival at Rangers. He scored a couple of goals so far. A lovely goal in pre-season against Real Madrid, of course, but today it seemed that he really took it up a level. A fantastic hat-trick. So much so that the president of Zambia has already tweeted about how great it was to see that happen, as the president of Zambia has arrived in Scotland for the COP26 as well. That all seems very pleasant. Rangers are going to have a bit of an issue up front here, aren't we? With Morelos, again, scored a few goals in his last couple of games. Kemar Roof scored again today. How do you fit Fashion? I mean, you surely can't drop the boy who's just scored a hat-trick and looked so electric today. But how do you fit Fashion Sakala into this team going forward?
Well, I mean, he scored today from, I suppose, the third guy in the front three. Why wouldn't he play there? I mean, I don't think Roof has had a great season at all this season, and I think Sakala has deserved his chance to show what he can do. I've thought, even in the sort of brief glimpses what I've seen, I know not necessarily everyone agrees, but I thought he's looked okay. I thought he's looked quite good, but he needed a run in the team and a bit of a chance to show. And I think today it wasn't just the goals that he scored. It was a really good hat trick. A good variety of goals, the kind that we've been missing. Really, there was sort of Morelos-esque, all three of them. But I thought he just looked like a really good player today. He was comfortable in the ball. He had a few nice tricks. He was holding it up well. He was passing it out wide. He was available for overlaps and things like that. So I mean, I thought his overall performance, it wasn't just the goals. His overall performance was great. So again, he's a guy with a jersey. He deserves another crack at it and another run in the team. So I'm delighted, because I think he's another player like Bassey, who really is enthusiastic. He really looks like he enjoys it. He really looks like he's glad to be where he is. I mean, I hope that's not because he thinks he's above a level above that he would have expected to be, but I don't think so. I think he's really genuinely pleased to be here and wants to do his best for the team. And I think he has the potential to play alongside Morelos. I don't know whether he's a sort of traditional number 9 or whatever you want to call it these days, but he's certainly in that front three. He really fits.
It's an interesting one, because I will admit to being someone who, to a degree, had written him off. I wasn't quite sure that he was good enough, and I hadn't seen enough in the camp. But it's difficult because he hasn't had a run in the team, and no one's going to really prove themselves with 10, 15 minutes off the bench here and there. So I'm absolutely delighted for him today to get those 3 goals. I thought he played extremely well. I thought he was very kind of humble and grounded in his post-match interview as well. So it's a very successful day for him, and I think very pleasing. Obviously, the Rangers support seem to have taken to him really, really nicely, and it could just be kind of a match made in heaven, hopefully. Colin, another of the goal scorers today, Glenn Kamara, not often that we get to see Kamara on the score sheet, and it's probably one of the criticisms that we've all had of Glenn over the past few seasons on this podcast. He doesn't take enough chances and that he doesn't get enough goals. Absolutely a lovely goal for him to score today. Are you pleased to see Rangers, because I don't think it's just Kamara, I think over the last few games there has been maybe more of an appetite to take more shots from outside the box or take more chances rather than constantly trying to work another opening. Do you think that's fair? And if so, are you happy to see us take that approach?
I think we do need to start shooting a wee bit more at times, and it happened today. 2 goals. I would say Kamara's and Sakala's were quite similar actually. But in terms of Kamara scoring, when you consider everything the boys went through over the last 6 or 7 months, and especially fairly recently, over in Prague again, 10,000 school kids booing him, and in the way that UEFA have failed to deal with that in any significant way. Now, I don't know if it's linked, but I would argue that since that initial incident with Kudela, I don't think Kamara's looked himself at all. He's not really hit the same heights that he was displaying for the majority of last season. I thought he had a great Euros. I thought he was superb in that. And I was actually a wee bit surprised that no one came in from, when I was watching him through that. I kind of thought there's a good chance that someone will come in from. That's not happened. He signed a new deal, delighted with that. But overall, I just don't think he's looked himself and been the same player that he was last season. So delighted he got his goal, and I think it's worth pointing out how delighted he looked when he scored it, and how delighted his teammates looked as well, as if, you've earned that, you've deserved that, you've been through a horrid 6 months. And yeah, good. And good that they celebrated right in front of the Motherwell Ultras as well. Although I don't know if they were still there by that time, they'd left fairly early by all accounts, but
it's funny, you look at the highlights, and the number of them that have gone by the time the 4th, 5th and 6th goals go in, it's like 1 in 10 is left.
Yeah, I know. The best thing I saw, and one of the best things I saw on Twitter the day was, these how it started, how it finished type tweets. It was like how it started, and it had them displaying this banner. It was like "Happy Halloween, ya zombie bastards," and then it was like how it finished, and it's that same area like with 10 minutes ago, and there's like nobody in it. Every one of them is away home. So yeah, delighted for Kamara, and delighted that the celebrations took part in that corner right in front of that wee mob there.
The Well Boys, I think.
The Well Boys, yeah.
Boys. Lovely stuff, Ian. Let's try and get ahead of some of the controversy that's undoubtedly going to plague the back pages over the next couple of days. Glenn Kamara's goal. Is there an argument to say that Fashion Sakala was offside? He was in the goalkeeper's eye line, and therefore the goal should not have stood.
I've only seen that goal from one angle that I can remember, and I'm not sure whether he was in his eye line or not, to be perfectly honest. So it's hard to say. I don't care. Is the honest truth? I mean, whether it was or it wasn't is almost irrelevant, because all it'll take is for somebody to say it was, and then we'll have another sort of few days of angry headlines about it. But I mean, it's brought off a duck's back as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we've been seeing the same for 30 years following Rangers, more than that. Whenever any even mildly controversial decision is given, then it prompts some mental conspiracy theory. So I'm past caring about it, to be quite honest.
It's at new levels of crazy now, though.
Well, it is, but I mean, it's... Well, I don't know. I mean, new levels of crazy. I've seen a lot from Davy Hay back in the sort of 87 Skull Cup final. I mean, that started the whole thing off, really, as far as I can remember. I mean, I'm sure there was plenty before that, but that's my sort of first memory of it, and that was crazy stuff to start off with there, and it probably came to a peak in the 9 in a row season, but it's starting to build up again to that sort of level again, and I think social media doesn't really help. And I don't know. I mean, as I say, so I don't think I don't know. It wasn't given, so we move on. That's the way it should be. And whether I would argue the same if it was a decision against Rangers as well. I'm not really getting embroiled in the refereeing controversy, because where does it leave you?
Mm-hmm. That leaves you a Celtic fan, I think.
Well, that's true.
For what it's worth, I thought it was offside.
I agree.
I do. But so. These things happen, and we were home and exposed.
Well, the game's over. That's the point, isn't it? Because that's part of why I don't care, because the game was dead. By that time,
it would be really good if it came down to something like how it was in 2003 that season when it finished with us against Dunfermline and Celtic playing at Kilmarnock, and we won by 1 goal. Now, if that happens this season, well, we all know what goal they're going to point to. They're going to point to that one and say, well, that shouldn't have counted, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, the game's done. You know what I mean? And in terms of the sort of the general noise, I don't think social media helps. I don't know if social media makes it worse, or whether it's just provided a spotlight onto how they were always thinking anyway. You know what I mean? If this is what they've always thought for all these years, I don't know, but
I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, that is definitely their mindset. Yeah, I mean, there's no question. But social media gives them the platform that they probably didn't really have before, other than sort of talking about it amongst themselves. But yeah, I mean, I suppose the difference now is that it's on social media, and when it's on social media, the sort of mainstream media, if you want to call it that, pick up on it as well, because they know that that's what's going to end up getting people talking. So that it ends up becoming more than just the wild conspiracy theories. It ends up becoming, mainstream news in some ways.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of wild conspiracy theories becoming mainstream news, the next bit of perceived controversy from the game was Graham Alexander coming out saying that Motherwell should have had a penalty when it was 1-0 in the first half. Colin, can you shed some light on what the hell he might be talking about?
I can't remember any penalty claim in the first half. I'm genuinely... I mean, I did think at one point, when Motherwell had that second chance, the ball sort of hit off Balogun on its way through. Yeah. No, it hits his leg.
Yeah,
it hits his leg. I did think initially it's hit his hand, you know what I mean? But when you saw the replay from the other side, and it doesn't. So is Graham Alexander claiming that was a penalty?
Graham Alexander is claiming that on another day, we could have had a penalty. And
there's your headlines tomorrow. Then there's the controversy and the Lanarkshire mafia line and all that angle. That's where they'll take it tomorrow, because at that point they were 1-0 up, so they'll claim that would have made it 2. And yeah, it'll be the usual again tomorrow, the usual controversy.
And then the final one, Colin, Stephen O'Donnell, red card, 2 yellows. Any reason to suggest that he shouldn't have been sent off?
Well, Andy Walker thinks the threshold for yellow cards is too low.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, personally, I don't think there's any doubt. I think the first one, I thought Sakala worked really hard to, get him out the road and win the ball back. He's on the wrong side. It's one of the ones you take one for the team, don't you? Because he's lost the ball, teammates are out of position, they're on the hop as a sort of transition in possession happens, and so he takes one for the team and he pulls them back, and that's it. So there's no doubt about that one. That's a booking. The second one, again, he's late. I mean, he's making a genuine attempt for the ball, but he's late. He's already on a booking, and he'd had a couple other wee niggles before that. Nibbles. It wasn't his first foul, so I don't think there's any doubt. And in the laws of the game today, I don't think there's any doubt that it's a booking. And it'd be interesting to see if it was the other way around. If Andy Walker would have been talking about the threshold of yellow cards being too low, somehow I don't think so. But no, there's no doubt about it. And I can't mind who it was, but someone mentioned, you can tell by O'Donnell's reaction at the second one. He doesn't protest it. He just sort of, I think he knows the minute he makes the tackle, he starts taking the armband off to hand it, to pass it over. So, no, but I mean, that'll be another controversy tomorrow, probably, in some of the papers. But no, I think the referee's got that one right.
I think he has. I also think Calvin Bassey for the second yellow does really well. He gets there, he knows that the challenge is coming, and he rides it, and he gets the foul and gets the yellow. I think it's...
And make sure he slides about 10 or 15 yards just for extra effect.
Why not? Right in front of the Well boys as well, that was.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Very satisfying.
But they were away by that point.
They were, that's true.
It was about 40 minutes in, so they were well gone.
They're well gone. The well boys.
I know.
Iain, Steven Gerrard in his post-match interview with Rangers TV, very, very complimentary of Stephen Davis. I think the chap asking the questions says, what did you think of Sakala's performance? And Gerrard goes, well, first of all, let's talk about Stephen Davis. And it says it was, as close to perfection in a midfield performance as you're going to get. Obviously, we've spoken a lot about him getting on in terms of age, that we wouldn't expect him to play every game. He's certainly not played every game so far this season, and John Lundstrom has, if not displaced Stephen Davis, has certainly added a question mark over who starts in that role. What do you think of Davis's season so far, and how that's likely to go for the rest of the campaign?
I think his season's been okay. I think he needed a break. I don't think he would have been playing every game if we had the full squad fit, and if some of the other sort of, like Lundstrom, for instance, if he'd started off the season better. I don't think Davis would have necessarily played as many games as he has, I should say. But yeah, I think he's been okay, and I think he's a player that is vitally important to have in the squad, because he's got that experience, and he's still performing at a very high level. But he's, even more importantly, he's there as an inspiration to the younger players. I mean, he does everything right. He's still playing international games. He's still playing week in, week out at the top level for Rangers. So I think he's a player who's a model, the cliche, a model professional, and he's a great guy to have in your squad. I do think as the season progresses, and hopefully if Ryan Jack comes back into the squad again as well, that'll give us more options in midfield, and he might play a few fewer games, and that will help him in the long term for this season. But yeah, I think he was, he was my man of the match today. I thought he was outstanding. As he has been in most of the games he's played in, he's done really well. There's been a few where he's been a bit slack, but most of the time he's been outstanding.
Yeah, there's been a lot of speculation that John Lundstrom coming in and the two of them playing together is too negative, or that they get in each other's way a little bit and they can't play together. Arguably, those are actually on paper two of our best players. Do you buy into that belief that the two of them shouldn't be in the same team?
There's been games where they've not looked great in the same team together. I think was it Dundee United game at the start of the season? I think they were pretty poor together in that game. But then Lundstrom had only I think maybe even his first game at that point, but he certainly hadn't been around for very long. And in fact, it was just the first game of the season, wasn't it? Or second game of the season. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. They are quite similar in a way, but I think if you have to play them together, and I think they were being played together out of necessity more than out of choice, really, to be honest. So sometimes that's just has to take precedence over what you would maybe want to do. I don't think they played particularly well in the last game they played together either. But yeah, it's not so much the negativity of it, it's just maybe they're just too similar in terms of what they do.
You're on mute, Ross.
Sorry. I think you're right, Iain. It's about the options that we have available, and when Ryan Jack comes back, that just adds a whole new dimension. And hopefully that day is getting closer and closer. But Colin, today it was a real statement victory, it felt like, and I think that was important. After Celtic dropping points yesterday, the ability to go 4 points clear at this point of the season, that's a really bold statement to make, and Rangers have obviously gone out and done that with real emphasis, and it's really encouraging to see. How important do you think that is, given the season that we've had so far, which has been a bit start-stop, which hasn't displayed the quality that we showed last year? Do you think it was important to go out and make a statement like that?
Well, I think, harking back to what we've been talking about in previous shows, we've been saying week after week, that this is us at the end of September and they're still waiting on this team to click. Well, we're into October now. This is us going into November. So we've been waiting for a while for this team to display something. And given what happened on Wednesday night, and given the week that we've had in general, with Walter Smith passing away, I did kind of feel when I was coming home for the game on Saturday that we were kind of losing our way a wee bit, and that this team, what I said on Wednesday was it felt like that this team was at the end of its cycle, you know what I mean? And that the loss against Malmo had meant that we couldn't go out and get freshen the team up with the quality that it needed. And that we've brought in players of a slightly lesser quality, and they've not really, other than Lundstrom over the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks, none of them have really made an impact. And it just kind of felt like things were kind of going south a wee bit, and that maybe, Celtic looked like they were starting to click. I still think they're a bit shaky at the back at times, but certainly going forward, that they looked like they were going to score goals, and they were going to provide a threat. So, I mean, it's in terms of the timing in this victory and the timing of the performance and the sort of statement that you talk about, it couldn't be any better. You know what I mean? Because Celtic choked yesterday. They had the opportunity to go top of the league, albeit it would have only been for 24 hours. But that would have put more pressure on us going into the game today. If Celtic were top of the league, Andy Walker and all the rest of them would have been all over that, saying, we'll find out what this Rangers team's about. And so, yeah, it was a big statement. Celtic had the opportunity yesterday to make a statement. They choked, even when they were handed a penalty that was one of the most bizarre decisions I think I've seen. In injury time, they fluffed that. And, a win today would probably have been enough, because it would have went back to that sort of thing we were talking about earlier on. We've got the character. The team isn't free-flowing and we're not scoring a lot of goals, but we're showing character. We had the opportunity to extend our lead over Celtic today and we took it. That's all about bottling character. But we've showed more than that today. And the players that haven't, on Wednesday night I was coming home saying, some of these players that have come in haven't made an impact. Well, there's Sakala today, has made an impact, and it was a telling impact. Especially in the second half. I mean, it wasn't just his goals. He ran Motherwell ragged, and going back to that point about Aribo being doing better work when he's in that front three. I think Sakala done a similar job to what Ryan Kent does today. He just ran them ragged. Now there is an element of headless chicken about him at times. He doesn't always get it right, but he was working Stephen O'Donnell that whole first half. And on the other side, Aribo was causing that. I thought Aribo in the first half was outstanding. The amount of stuff that he was doing, and that's where the stuff with Tav. I think Tav does better stuff when Aribo's up there as well. They link up well and just cause teams absolute mayhem. So yeah, it kind of felt like I felt last season when it was Kent, Morelos, and Aribo up front, we were going to score and we were going to run riot. It felt as close to that today with Sakala, Morelos and Aribo. And so, yeah, everything about today, Arfield's came back in. I think that's a player that many thought that's him on his way out. His Rangers career's tailing off. I thought he was brilliant. I thought the mix today in that midfield was perfect. Stephen Davis was outstanding. I thought Arfield played really well. And I know we're saying earlier on that Kamara still doesn't quite look himself. I thought he played well today and obviously got his goal. So I think, although Lundstrom's probably been our best performer in the middle of the park, I think that's the best mix I've seen today. I thought the middle three played really well. So everything about it, outside the stupid goal, which still puts question marks over our ability to clean sheets, everything about the performance in that statement today, I needed it, if I'm being honest, because I came home on Wednesday really thinking, I'm starting to doubt this team's ability to win this league. So they've shown the character to get the win, and they've shown a bit of quality to really pummel Motherwell, and one or two of the guys that have came in who hadn't really contributed so far have contributed in a big way.
Yeah, I think Arfield was poor, but otherwise I do.
Your hatred of Arfield is shocking.
Honestly, I thought he was poor. I don't think he contributed much. I don't think. I don't know. I don't think we should have had Hadji in the team. I don't think we should have had Lundstrom in the team. I think it was the right. Arguably, should we have gone with Scott Wright maybe? But I don't think he created much, or not for me. I'm not convinced still. But
just blind hatred. That's all.
It's funny what you say about I needed that, because I think we probably all did to a degree. It's been a very stressful actually this season watching Rangers, whether it's in the league or in Europe. It's not, we've not had the same sort of stress-free last 15-20 minutes of the game like we had on so many occasions last season. So I also suspect that the manager needed that. It must have been a really frustrating, intense season for him so far, and you could see little releases of emotion like the Hibs game a few weeks back. I suspect he'll feel a little bit vindicated today to go, actually, we have been decimated by COVID and injuries and suspensions, and it's not, we haven't been able to settle as a team. But if you give us a chance, this is what we will do. Motherwell are a team that caused us problems earlier this season, that took points off us at home. So I think he'll feel a little bit vindicated, and I think he would have needed that himself. I really do. Iain, linked to what I've just said there, I think that there have been a number of false dawns this season, whether it's the result that we got against Hibs or the result against Brøndby, where we've sort of gone, okay, now it's going to click. But after each of those, whether it's saying we go into the Hearts game at home and drop points, or we drop points at home against Aberdeen, it's not been the turning point of the season that we've wanted. Today feels a little bit different. I think the level of performance that was put in today and the level of domination in the scoreline at the end of the game. Do you have any faith that this finally could be the point that kickstarts us and gets a little bit of a run together?
No. To be perfectly honest, no. I think this is going to be one of those seasons that it's going to be all the way through the season. We're going to have good games. We're going to have maybe 2 or 3 games in a row where we do well, and then we're going to drop points again, and then maybe have another couple of poor performances, then pick it up again. I think it's just it's going to be one of those seasons. And I'm okay with that if it ends up at the end of the day with the positive outcome. But I just don't. I think what we need is first of all, we need consistency of team selection, and that will help. And once we've got a full squad, or hopefully we get a full squad back again, and players are available, then I think that will help. But I think at the moment it's just. I think we should just brace ourselves that this is going to be a bit of a roller coaster season for the rest of the season, because we have had, as you say, we've had good performances, and then 2 or 3 games later, maybe even the game later, then we're looking pretty poor. I still think, looking at it overall, I mean, throughout most of the games, we've been by far the better team in all the games, nearly all the games we've played. And I would say, from what little I watch of other teams in Scotland, I would say we have played better than anything I've seen from any other team in patches. The problem is we've had slack bits during games, and that's probably more of a concern than the sort of the general consistency over the season. I think we're not consistent during games, so there are patches of games where we're brilliant, playing teams off the park. And then because we aren't taking the chances that we need to, or because we're having slack, crazy moments in defence, then that good work's undone. And then we maybe come back and play well again later on in the game, but by that time it's too late, or it's, it means we're digging out because we're behind, or we're coming back from behind. So I think consistency within the games has been quite a big problem, more than the throughout the actual individual games. But again, we have to remember that we've not been playing really with the first choice team, I don't think, at any point in this season. I mean, obviously, I think Ryan Jack will walk into the team if he's at full fitness. So, you would have expected him to be an automatic starter for most games. So, right away we're changing what we would probably want to have as the first choice team. So, yeah, I think to be honest, I think we're going to have to just for a while anyway. We're going to see a lot of this sort of up and down throughout the season. Yeah,
it's you do sometimes have to reflect on just how many key positions we've had missing through injury. I think Philip Hollander's a big miss for us. I mean, I think that Leon Balogun has done very, very well actually this season. Probably one of the better players that we've had. But Philip Hollander, Borna Barisic has been injured. Yanis Hadji was out with COVID at a key part. Ryan Kent, obviously. Ryan Jack. It's just not all pieced together yet, and I think that the management team would certainly point to that. But the consistency within games, I completely agree with that point, because it sometimes feels like we'll have a very, very good 45 minutes or a very, very good half hour. But that's not, well, I was going to say that's not enough, but I mean, it clearly is, because we're 4 points clear and everyone else is dropping points left, right.
That's what we have to remember, actually, is, we are, as I say, I think we're the best team. We're still the best team in Scotland.
Yeah,
I think.
definitely.
Despite the gripes and the complaints that we all have. I mean, I think we've proven that we're the best team in Scotland so far this season, and we'd like to see better performances, but that hopefully that will come more consistently. But yeah, I mean, I think. As you say, we're 4 points clear and it's November, and as long as we can continue along those lines, then we should all be happy.
I think a run of about 10 games, a decent run, dropping a huge amount of points, maybe winning 8, 9 of those 10 games and drawing the other. The way the league's been this season, I think that a run like that could be enough, because you think you Hibs, Hibs started the season on fire. They're starting to slip away. They're losing quite a lot at the moment. Motherwell, earlier on, when we met them earlier on this season, I think they were on a run of 6 games undefeated. They were sitting third, I think, at the time. They're slipping away. Aberdeen have been on a horrendous run, and they're now, turning things round a wee bit and starting to climb the table. So it seems to be one of those seasons that all teams are showing that they're inconsistent. So if one team goes on a run, I think that'll be enough. So, and I would hope it would be between now and the winter break, because as we were saying in the WhatsApp chat earlier on today, we'll lose Aribo and Balogun and Bassey for a couple of weeks for the African Cup of Nations. So if Rangers could go on a good run between now and the January break, then I think that would put us in a good place for the sort of back nine, so to speak.
Well, we speak a lot about how important momentum is in football. And that was, I think, a huge part of why we won the league last year, was the momentum that we had in that first 12 to 15 games of the season. And we've not had that so far. I think that you're right, Colin. A 10-game run would be ideal. And I think actually that as we come to the end of November, that's the time for that to start, because we don't have any cup games. We don't have any international breaks. I mean, I think the weekend after next, we're on to our sort of third or fourth international break of the season. But once we get to I think it's Sunday, the 21st of November, we play Hibs at home. We then have, I think it is a good 10, 12 league games up until we play Celtic on the 2nd of January, of just relentless midweek weekend. And if it's not a midweek Premier League game, then it'll be a midweek Europa League game. So that's the time to build that momentum. That's the time, by the way, that we need our Ryan Kents and our Ryan Jacks back from injury. I know we won't have Philip Hollander, but that's the time to really put the foot down and try and build that run. I think it was Stuart Weir that said on the preview show on Friday that it's often sort of November, December, January time that leagues are won and lost. And I think that this is a really, really good example of that. And like I say, for all of the frustrations, I don't like being the one to say this, but as badly as we've played at times this season, we are still 4 points clear, and I'd rather be 4 points clear going into a run like that. So if we can get ourselves over the line next week against Ross County, go into the international break, come back from that with no injuries, it sets us up for a 12-game run of real momentum. And I think that's what's important, to try and use this as the turning point of the season. Ross County at home. They are bottom of the league with 6 points from 11 games. This is our easiest game on paper. There is no excuse for not following up today's result with another victory next week. Obviously, we'll have to go to Brøndby, and we've not really spoken about Brøndby. We'll do a preview show for that on Wednesday night, and we don't want to spoil that. But in terms of league, it really should be the easiest it's going to get next weekend, and that's why we need to take this opportunity and really start to go on a run. Gents, we're approaching the hour, and I think we've probably covered pretty much every talking point from today's game against Motherwell. So I think that's probably a good point for us to wrap up tonight. I'll say a big thank you to both Colin and to Iain for giving up their Sunday evenings to come and give us the benefit of their insight and wisdom. And a massive thanks to everyone as well who's joined us on the YouTube stream live tonight. A big thank you for you to giving up your evenings as well. It's really very much appreciated. The show, as I say, is always available for download on a Monday morning. Please do give us a like and a subscribe. Make sure you don't miss a thing. And as I say, we will be back on Wednesday night, looking ahead to Thursday's trip to Copenhagen as we take on Brøndby in the Europa League. I think we're going to be lucky enough to be joined by a blogger from Brøndby as well. So please do tune in for that. It's always very insightful discussions that we have with our European counterparts. And of course, the show will then be back next Sunday, looking back at the week's action. So a massive thank you to everyone for listening. Please do head over to the website in the meantime at www.gersnet.co.uk. And until Wednesday, thank you so much for joining us and have a great week.